Come unwrap some holiday magic this season in Denver, where the lights are brighter and the shopping is grander. The shows are more spectacular, the trees taller, the festivities merrier. So come for your holiday traditions or make some new ones with your friends and family in the Mile High City, where the season feels a whole lot more wonderful. Discover great hotels and more things to do at milehighholidays.com.
You're in the Ojai area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes there are issues with connections out that way. I always notice that with people on the West Coast.
Huh. Wonder why. That's weird. I'm actually not there today. I'm in a motel, but yes.
Oh, okay, that sounds wonderful. So, are you on the road? Or are you traveling?
I'm going away for a few days to work on the theatrical version of this record. So I've set aside a few days to lock myself away and work on that.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to do that to really just get yourself into the mood and just like close off the outside world.
It works for me. It's the only thing really that does, I mean, at home I have a nice space to write and I don't get stuff done there. So
Yeah, too many interruptions, that's for sure.
yeah.
So the new album is a white album. What are the origins of that title?
Well, it's obviously a play on a similarly named album.
Right. You know that one. I do.
Yeah, which was not called the White Album, but that's how we refer to it. I was trying to find. I mean, the record is me talking about myself and my family and my background through the lens of race. That topic, that fraught topic, and it just seemed like the right title. It's not the definitive White Album. It's just it's a White Album, and it's my White Album.
Yeah, it's not the same kind of cover. We don't want to confuse it with the legendary band that had released their album in 1968.
No.
Yeah, so we're talking a lot about race these days. What was that the catalyst for delving into this project? Was that a lot on your mind in the wake of George Floyd and all these other incidents that have been happening recently?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I was starting to write this record, it was kind of towards the beginning of the pandemic, and that was so much it was just so many things were happening right then. I didn't set out specifically to say I'm going to write about this, but this is what was coming out. So I just went with it and decided to go further into it.
Yeah, we've just been talking and all the way into corporations and government. Finally, we're getting to a point where it's like, yeah, we still have these issues. We're not in this so-called post-racial society.
No, and the question is how to talk. I mean, right, hardly. But the question is how to talk about it in a way that's going to be constructive or productive, and how to get past for me as a white person, how to get past being defensive or feeling like scared to talk about it. How to do that, and that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out.
And that's what's been really big lately with the whole CRT initiative and the whole project that the New York Times had done, and all these legislators using it in their populism and, of course, trying to get reelected and using this as a vehicle. It's just like that's the whole thing we have to deal with, is that they're playing into that, saying, oh, yeah, we don't want to make people feel like they're being victimized if we're teaching this in schools. And it's like that's not the point. It's like, I think that they're just trying to like jump on that and just say, hey, well, you're trying to put this white guilt on me. And
right. Yeah, to me, that's just a non-productive way of looking at it. And we're obviously we're not there yet. And how do we get to the promise of an equitable society? How do we get there? Well, part of it is you have to look at it. You just have to. And how to do that, I get though why people feel intimidated to do it. I get why it can be scary or a fraught topic, or they don't want to, nobody wants to feel guilty, nobody wants to feel bad. And I think most people don't want to be perceived or perceive themselves as racist. Given a choice of two, people are going to pick not racist, but I think that choice of two is not very helpful. I think it's much more useful to go, how am I, what biases do I have,
Right.
what things do I not understand that I could understand better, and that's a conversation that can grow. And so yeah, I'm just trying to sidestep that whole thing and look at it, just look at it.
Yeah, I think that's really it. I took a sociology class way back when I was in school, and it wasn't about like, hey, you're a racist. No, it's biases, and we all have those as we grow
Yeah.
up. That's really what this is about: is confronting our biases from our culture, from where, what we've learned from parents, our schools, way back when there wasn't this kind of an awareness going on.
And they get in our brain before we ever have a chance to have any defenses for them. I mean, we all have them. And I mean, and not just about race, like I might have a bias against people who think politically differently than I do. I might make assumptions about what people value, or none of those are really going to be very helpful. And so yeah, I don't think we can make them go away necessarily, but we can at least look at them when they pop up and go, is that accurate or is it
Yeah.
not?
We're at least having that conversation now rather than getting defensive. And that's really what's important. It's really great that you've intertwined this into your new project and just keep this conversation open and going, and mixing it with art. I think that's just a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
Your album opens up with a track called Melody and Jack. And this is about an interracial crush that happened the same year the Emmett Till lynching had happened. For those who don't know, what is the story in a brief way? The lynching of Emmett Till.
Yeah, Emmett Till was a little boy. He was, I guess, 12 or something like that. And he was accused of catcalling or whistling or saying something inappropriate to a white woman, and ended up being murdered for it. And it was it was a case that caught the national imagination, especially because his mother decided to have an open casket and use what happened to him as a way of educating the country, the world, about the horror that he had suffered. And it was complicated by the fact that later the woman in question may or may not have retracted. There was some debate about that. Um, there, there's still a push for justice for him. Um, so, but about my song, it just came from a story that my grandmother told me. My mom passed away when I was a kid, and so I didn't. Most of my stories of her came from my grandmother or from my dad, and she told me about my mom as a kid and their little friends up in Vallejo, California, which was a shipyard town, and then my grandfather worked at the naval shipyard, and one of my mom's friends was black, and uh, his name wasn't Jack. That's just a name I picked for the song, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea who it was. But anyway, he told my grandmother one day he was in love with my mom and he was going to marry her. And I always just thought that was like the sweetest story. They were probably like 9 or 10, something like that. But it also had this tinge of sadness just because I thought of the times and it could never be. Of course, they were 9. I mean, it was just like a childhood crush. But it wasn't until years later that in fact, in this last year, while I was writing, a couple of years when I was writing songs for this record, that I thought, wait a minute, there's another layer here that I hadn't even considered, which is this was probably 1952, 1950 through 1954, somewhere in there. And he was at risk for having a crush on a white girl. Never even thought of that before. And did his mom have to talk to him? Did she have to say, hey, be careful? I don't know. I have no idea. But this song is just me this is what I mean about like looking back at my own family stories, just with fresh eyes and seeing what I can see, and
Mm.
and not being scared of that. I mean, I think, nobody wants to feel bad, but it's okay if you look back at the stuff and go, wow, that's unfortunate, or I wish something hadn't gone that way. It's okay. We can do it. We can do it.
Oh, imagine how scary it was way back then, when you were talking about like in places where it was, illegal to have an interracial
Oh yeah.
marriage. I mean, did you ever see that movie Loving? Uh,
I didn't actually see it, and it's been on my list forever because I love both the actors in it. And for some reason, I haven't actually watched it. Is it wonderful?
yeah, it's really great. We have an
Yeah.
actor here I'm in the Atlanta area, and her name is Sharon Blackwood, and she appears in that movie.
Ah,
It's really, really good. Yeah,
great.
she's been in a lot of things. She was in I think the first season of Ozark, which they shoot a lot
Ah,
around here.
cool.
Yeah, great story. But that it reminds me, I mean, imagine way back then, how scary were things like that. And then think about all of our civil rights heroes and
Yeah.
having to deal with the way it was back then in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and really confronting that head on. It's what heroes
Yeah.
these people are.
Yeah, and we're still hashing it out. Like, we've hardly come on the other side of it. We're still hashing it out.
Yeah, we have a great civil rights museum. A little plug for the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau. We have a civil rights museum here, and
Oh, I know. I've
yeah,
been wanting to go see it. Yeah, I
yeah,
will next time I come through
you
Atlanta.
really love it. Yeah, awesome. You have a great new single off of your new album. It's called "The Money." It's got some really. I love some of these lyrics. This is just like, Grandpa says everything's going to be okay if you really work hard. How did that hit you as you were writing that?
Yeah, well,
Waiting for mortgage rates to drop could be a costly mistake. Once rates drop, new homebuyers will enter the market and prices will soar even higher. At Churchill Mortgage, you can get a free analysis and learn how to avoid the trap of waiting for interest rates to drop. Buy now and refi later at churchillmortgage.com. This is a paid advertisement. NMLS ID 1591. NMLSconsumeraccess.org. Equal housing lender. 1749 Mallory Lane, Suite 100, Brentwood, Tennessee 37027.
it started with a conversation I had with a friend of mine who teaches high school in Oakland. And she told me about redlining, and I had no idea what it was. I didn't know about it because I never had to deal with it. It didn't happen in my life, and I never even knew about the policies. And for those that don't know, redlining was the practice after World War II of, well, before also, of the banks. The Federal Housing Administration drew red lines around certain neighborhoods, and they wouldn't loan money to banks for mortgages in mixed neighborhoods. So it was kind of de facto segregation. So what happened was the sailors and soldiers, the service members, came back from World War II. They got the GI Bill. They all did. But they were limited in which neighborhoods they could buy their homes. So as time goes on, the better houses were in the white neighborhoods, and those houses increased in value. The other houses in the other neighborhoods did not. And so the next generation comes along, and you know you need to, if you want to send your kid to college, you take out a loan and you mortgage, or you use your house as collateral. And you couldn't do that if you were in the poor neighborhood. So it just made the gap keep widening and widening. And it really helped me to understand why we're still dealing with this, why the effects of this policy are continuing to cause harm today. So anyway, I wrote a little ditty about it with 3 vocal parts and kind of silly love songs, harmony thing. And that's just what came out. But that was based on that conversation with my friend.
Yeah, Grandpa was bought a house up on the hill. It was a poor boy. It's like I could almost picture these characters. It's just very
Yay,
visual.
good. I'm glad. Good, I did my job.
Yeah, you don't need really a concept video, but which you've done a lot of videos. You have some concept videos out there,
Yeah,
which
I
are
was struggling with what to do with I'm actually in the process of making a video for that one. And I'm still trying to figure out what the approach is. So yeah, there will be a concept, but I haven't figured it out yet.
so there's a little bit of theater here, and so that's what you're working on, is turning this more into a stage play based on this album.
Yeah, yeah. I did that before with my record Cinder Block Bookshelves, which was a memoir, a childhood memoir of growing up a hippie kid raised by my dad. And it was a one woman play with a guitar player and the music. And this is going to be something of a sequel to that. I don't know what that looks like, especially now with COVID and how do you tour, and so I'm exploring that. But this weekend, what I'm doing is working on the prose for the theatrical part of it, and how it gets performed shall be seen soon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Working with director Kim Maxwell, how did that relationship start?
She directed my other play, and she was the co-founder of a small theater in Ojai, where I live, called Theater 150. She's also a founding member of the Ojai Playwrights Conference, and she and I have been best pals for years. And I serve on the board of her organization, the Townies now, which is a writing and performing group. And she just gets me, and she's such a good director, and such a good coach for writers too, of helping you say what you're trying to say in a compelling and dramatically interesting way. So yeah, since she directed Cinder Block Bookshelves, it just felt right that she should direct the sequel. And she and I are talking about this stuff all the time, like how do we as white women uh, get grow and learn and change our behavior and all that. So we're working through this stuff. We're both working through this stuff. It seems like a good way to go.
So when you're putting these plays together, are you involved in the casting? How does
It's a
all that?
one woman show.
Oh, which is
So
one
I
of
am the
this one.
cast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a guitar player, or I'm not sure. There will be probably a band for this one. That's what I want, just because the songs are so much more. Cinder Block Bookshelves was a little more of a folk record. This is a rock and roll record, so it'd be cool to have
Yeah.
a full band. I just don't know how that's going to play out yet.
Got some other good tracks on here. You cover Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
One of your favorite songs out of that catalog. How is that fitting into the theme of this album?
Well, it's that song Visions, and I sing it with Akina Adderley. And I was just looking for the right song to sing with Akina. She had agreed to be on the record, and I usually do a cover or two on all my records. And Stevie Wonder, I mean. And so, and that song is just what I love about that song is it captures this sort of wistfulness of like, what if we really could make this work? What if we really could have, it's a vision of, what if we could have this world we dream of having, where people are truly equal and with equal opportunity. And it's really poignant to sing it with her. I love that. I love it. Plus, it has some really cool musicians on it. It has, Mark Hallman, my producer, who plays all the instruments on the record on most songs. He plays upright bass. This wonderful guitar player, Martin Young, plays guitar. And then Michael Jorgensen from Wilco plays the keyboards. He lives in Ojai. And then Mark's son, Taylor, who's a young musician, plays the piano. So it was just like a beautiful combination of parts, and different kind of song than I normally do, but I love how it came out.
So you've been in Ojai for a while, for a long time, probably. It sounds like a very artistic community where you have a lot of inspiration.
Yeah, it is. It is very artistic. It's also becoming quite a tourist town. It always was, but it's in the past few years, it's gotten a lot more intense. So pros and cons to that. But yeah, it's a great place to be, and it's close enough to LA to be able to get down there to do stuff. But it's a world away in terms of its setting. And I live outside of town, so I kind of live out in the sticks outside of this small town. So it's great. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it would be very inspirational. I went by there off the freeway. I was going into Ventura, and
Yeah.
it's not too far from there. Yeah, very hilly.
Totally.
So how far up do you go? It seems like it's
Right. Well, you can go all the way back to Bakersfield that way if you want to, but yeah, it's like 35 minutes from the ocean. So it's in the mountains, but it's right by this. It's pretty great. Yeah, it is. I
yeah.
just moved there because that's where my dad landed me in junior high when he moved in with a girlfriend there, and I stayed.
You got a heck of a life there. Born in Hollywood to a couple that divorced when you were pretty young, and your mom made demos. I was reading about that. That must have
Yeah.
had a big influence on you.
Oh yeah, it definitely had an influence on me. In ways that you don't know, but they just go in. Watching her record demos in the living room definitely had an impact. Plus, she had a song cut by Nancy Sinatra, which was amazing.
That kind of a woman, is that the
Yes, it's such a cool song. It's totally worth looking up. It's such a Nancy Sinatra song. Um, and then she joined a fundamentalist cult, and she and I spent did that, and that was very intense. And then she passed away, and I was raised by my dad. So yeah, it was a pretty crazy childhood. Yeah, it was,
can't
but
make
good,
that up.
but yeah, but good for becoming a songwriter for sure.
There was a cult in Redondo Beach. What was Redondo Beach like back in the day? I've been there too. It's probably
Yeah,
become more touristy.
yeah. I mean, it was like a little beach, 1970s beach town. Uh, yeah, I mean, these were like the Jesus freak hippies,
Mm.
and I have friends who, it turns out, kind of encountered us. I didn't know that. Later, we figured it out. Walking up to people on the pier and trying to talk to them about the gospel, and yeah, it was something. But yeah, Redondo Beach. Yeah, I think it's probably more upscale now than it was then. It was, it was funky enough that the we hippies could afford to live there then.
Remember those kind of mini buses? Those were pretty big back then.
Oh, maybe I don't know about that. Oh, you mean like the minibus, like the Volkswagen van?
Yeah. Like
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, my dad had one of those. Yes, for sure.
I visited there.
They're back.
I had some relatives in the LA area, Canoga Park, when I was like, I must have visited there when I was like 6. I'll never forget that, and seeing some of the beaches out there. It was really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Did you grow up in Atlanta?
No, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. I've been in
Oh, okay.
Atlanta well over 3 decades,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
which is a great
Great.
music scene here as well. Great
Yeah.
venues here. Very, very well.
Excellent.
Yeah. So you growing up though, you were in and out of a lot of houses. What was that
I
experience like?
I think I counted 23 before. Yeah.
Mm.
It made me adaptable. And sometimes it was hard. It made me want to settle down when I did. My husband and I have lived in the same place for 30 years or something like that. So yeah, it made me want to have a home and make a home. Some people just keep moving, and that's good for them. I love traveling and going places and going and doing things in different places, but I love having my house to come back to.
Yeah,
Um,
you probably want that stability when you have so
yeah,
much upheaval.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm glad to have had it. Another thing it did was, because I lived in hippie towns. I lived on a ranch in Colorado. I've lived a lot of different places and got to see a lot of different people and be a part of different kinds of lifestyles. And I think it did make me more empathetic. And I'm glad about that.
Wow, and your dad was an actor and an oyster fisherman? That's quite a cross
The
there.
oyster fisherman was to
We don't want to
to
talk about what he
pay.
was dealing in either, but
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can. Um,
real
yeah.
Renaissance man. That's definitely.
Well, the oyster fishing was to pay for the acting. Um, yeah, it was just one of those jobs. He had a lot of them.
I love hearing that, how somebody's like done everything. Like, gosh, I was traffic school and you did traffic school instructing, acting,
Yeah.
oyster fisherman, all over the place.
Yeah, but they were all just a way to pay the bills so that he could, write.
Capture the spirit of the holidays like never before with Rockbrook Camera, Nebraska and Western Iowa's premier camera store since 1975. Rockbrook Camera has the latest cameras and lenses, so you can preserve precious memories and learn new photography skills that will last a lifetime. Let the knowledgeable photography pros at Rockbrook Camera show you how to take great pictures of family traditions, the kids' sporting events, and the kids' big holiday musical. Rockbrook Camera is always ready to help with amazing customer support. Join one of their photo classes to learn the best tips and order a beautiful, custom-made gift from their photo lab. Capture the beauty and majesty of winter's snowy landscapes. Be prepared for holiday gatherings and be ready to capture all the family fun. Visit Rockbrook Camera today, 1 block south of 168th and West Center in Omaha, 70th and Pioneers in Lincoln, or online at rockbrookcamera.com. Rockbrook Camera. Great photography begins here.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
So so he had a pretty crazy life. I mean, after I stopped moving, he kept moving. I think when he finally passed away, I counted, he'd lived in like over 40 houses. So he was nomadic for sure.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
But how interesting though. What a
Yeah.
rich life like that.
Yeah, he was an interesting person for sure.
Oh.
Yeah.
Another interesting track on your album, it's called This Water. And that's your duet with Ben Lee.
Yeah.
What was that
Yeah.
like working with him?
Well, he's wonderful. He's just really a funny, caring person, and he's great. And I mean, we recorded it remotely. He did his part in Australia, where he was hunkering down during the pandemic. We met because we were both affiliated with the TV show Life Unexpected. We both appeared as ourselves in a music festival episode, which was surreal, but that's where we met. And then we ended up meeting again later. So he's just someone who is very he's a very involved and caring guy. And so I asked him if he would sing on this, and he immediately said yes, and I was very happy about that. So he cut his vocal track and sent it to me from Australia.
You recorded this project in Austin, Texas, with some other wonderful artists there, like Betty Sue. Was she actually there in Austin with you?
She recorded her part at her home studio in Austin. I mean, the way the stuff gets recorded is very collage-like, my producer, Mark, who has produced the last 5 records, he plays almost all the instruments. And our technique usually is that I make a demo and I send it to him, and then he starts to work on the arrangement and make it grow into the song that it's going to be. And then I go there and I record the vocals, and then I go home and we keep collaborating remotely as he puts more instruments on and the songs begin to take shape. And we didn't know during the pandemic if that was going to be possible, if I was going to be able to go there. We thought I wouldn't, but it turned out in between variants, I was able to do that. And I'm so glad I did, because it's just better to do it in person. But Betty Sue and Akina Adderley are both in Austin, and they recorded their parts at their home studio. So it's just these days it's totally feasible to do it like that. But yeah, Betty Sue is wonderful, and the song she sings on is so great. Delighted to have Akina Adderley and her on the record, and Ben Lee. Yeah.
And recorded at the Congress House. Is that a landmark, a special kind of place? It was noted in.
It may or may not still exist as of today. It was the oldest continuously operating recording studio in Austin. Mark ran the place since the early 80s, when he bought a little farmhouse out in the country as a crash pad for his fellow hippie Colorado musicians when he came down there to make records for Carole King. And it just grew into a recording studio. It became a recording studio, and Ani DeFranco did nearly a dozen records there. It became kind of legendary as a place for indie artists to go record in a very organic um, place. And a lot of that, much of it had to do with him and just the kind of person that he is. And I made a documentary about the arc of the music business as told through him and his studio, called The Shopkeeper, and how streaming changed everything. And so anyway, the plan was always someday when he was older to sell it, and that would be his retirement. And as the city encroached and grew around the studio, that day seemed like it was probably coming. And the building was old, and the roof was starting to fall apart, and it really became a question of like, okay, it's either put a bunch of money into this place or accept that the time has come. And so that's what happened. And I went there in January to help clean it out and take the art down off the walls and box everything up. And they've moved to another old studio, really cool, other, kind of legendary studio in Austin where they're working now. So it's not goodbye. It's just a transition. But yeah, this beautiful place that I love so much and have now just finished my 5th record there, could be seeing the wrecking ball even this week. I don't know. I haven't gotten a report that it's happened yet, but it's about to happen.
Yeah, that's the cool spot in Texas, Austin. It's just, yeah, I'm sure it's got a very good vibe there too. I've never been there. Have you spent a lot of time in Austin?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I was really drawn to it because I really I went there to work with Mark, but what I found is a lot of my friends live and work there. Matt the electrician is a friend. I don't know if you know his music, but lots of great people record there, and there's an authenticity to the kind of music that comes out of there. And I don't know, it resonated with me. I've spent a little time in Nashville, and everyone is so good, such good players, but it's so much more of an industry town, which is great. But Austin, maybe they're not making money so much, but there was just sort of more of a looseness and yet tightness. Like everyone's really good, but they're I don't know, it just felt comfortable to me.
Yeah, yeah. Nashville's so big, and I think that you would have a lot more comfort in Austin, just recording and being creative. I'm sure that's got a really good feel, and the food isn't so
Oh my
shabby
God,
either.
the food is crazy. It's like Disneyland really for, music and food, and the Alamo Draft House. It's just, yeah, it's pretty great. It also has grown a huge amount in the past 10, 15, 20 years. It's changed a lot, but it's still pretty great.
How long did it take you to finish the documentary Shopkeeper? That's about 6, 7 years old now. How long did that
Yeah,
take to put
yeah.
together?
The whole process took about 3 years, from the film, from the interviews to all of the work of transcribe. It was just a 2-person crew, me and my director of photography, this guy Micah Van Hove, who's a young filmmaker who's really good. And he and I were we knew that we had to be a very small team, and so the 2 of us were the production crew. And yeah, I think from the time that we decided let's make a documentary to when it premiered was about 3 years,
It's a lot of work. A
including
lot of people.
the Kickstarter and the whole deal. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Where can we find the Shopkeeper?
The Shopkeeper is out. You can find it on Amazon Prime. It's on iTunes. There's the website shopkeepermovie.com. You can watch there. It's there out. It's out there to be seen.
Yeah, yeah, it's a really important subject, especially these days with the streaming services and how that's really just changed the whole face of music and how artists are not really making that money, at least with recording as they once did. They always did traditionally better, doing it live.
Yeah, yeah. It changed. It fundamentally changed things because music became free, and people expected not to pay for it anymore. And paying for music was kind of maybe the aberration for the whole course of history. That wasn't something that happened. I got pretty used to dreaming of making that kind of career where you could make money selling music. And right when I was starting to, um, you know, make some headway in my career, that's when streaming began to, rise. And it felt to me and to a lot of people like the rug getting pulled out from under you. Um, on the other hand, things change. I
Yeah.
just felt like, and I still feel like, the model that we're using now is just so inequitable for the artists. But it's hard for musicians to get themselves organized to fight it. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll
Yeah,
see.
that's so tough. And you're working so hard. And especially with recording. And then, at the end of the day, it's like, what are you making? You're not making very much doing that. You gotta
Um,
get out there.
Not much. It's like one. It's 0.0084% of a penny per stream.
Nice.
So it's really like nothing. It's pretty much like nothing, except that people have come to have to depend on the streaming services for exposure. So, and then they have to try to make their money some other way. So it's complicated. It's very complicated, and they all are inequitable, and they
Yeah.
all have become essential for artists. So it's a bit of a catch-22.
Yeah, I mean, you can get yourself out there. You're on YouTube. We're all over the place here, and it's nice that you could distribute. It's so much easier digitally as compared to many, many years ago. You had to send out physical tapes and your CDs and maybe your LPs, and it's like it was so much harder dealing with that, trying to distribute. Now, the thing is, it's easier, but so many people can do it. Like everybody could do it.
Yeah, which means that from my perspective, it means that the music that might have been like somebody's promising first demo, we just released. And so I think it's taken the quality of a lot of music down just because it's so easy to release it. You don't have to have as much skin in the game to release something. Everyone used to talk about the gatekeepers and how awful the record companies were. They were, and they are still, but there were people who had ears, those record guys like Ahmet Ertegun and Clive Davis and stuff. They could hear, they could pick them. And a lot of really good people got shut out. That was the downside. But the upside was, there was this cultivation of talent. Whoever signed David Bowie in the first place, like, to figure that out.
Yeah.
And I just don't know that the infrastructure is there for that kind of greatness. Not that there aren't great artists, there are, but it's harder for them to hit in the industry because there's just, like you say, so much out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So how many in total years have you been recording now? And what number album is this? A White
This
Album?
is my sixth album. My first sort of figuring out how to make a record came out in 2000. And then I spent many years writing and the play and the album that became Cinder Block Bookshelf. So that came out in 2008. Yeah. And then I've been making them every few years since then.
Cinder Block Bookshelves, that was inspired by your father's passing. That had to be a real cathartic experience.
It was, yes, that's exactly what it was. And it's really about grief, and it's about coming to terms with your parents and the things they give you and the things that, their legacy, for better and for worse. And there were some things that were very hard and other things that made me appreciate him in ways I hadn't before. And also that became a radio drama, which is now you can listen to. So I turned that into a radio drama. So yeah.
Beautiful.
It's on Apple Podcasts and everything.
Yeah, song "Beautiful Tree" became part of CW ran the show.
Yeah, it was the theme song. It got chosen as the theme song, which was just a unexpected and great turn of events. And how I met Ben Lee, coincidentally.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wow.
Yeah.
How and you were saying it was kind of surreal when you were on One Tree Hill, like playing
Well,
your
it
new
was a
music.
crossover episode with One Tree Hill and Life Unexpected, and they did this music festival episode, and it just happened. Like it was this weird series of events. I had asked the creator of the show, her name's Liz Tiglar. She went on to make Little Fires Everywhere. She worked on the morning show, on Bates Motel. Like
I love
she's
that show.
big fancy producer and showrunner now. But anyway, she and I, they picked my song for the show, and I had reached out to her to say, my husband and I are looking to go somewhere for the weekend. We were thinking of coming. And seeing if we could, maybe watch the show be filmed. And she's like, well, we're writing a music festival episode. Maybe we can write you into it. I'm like, okay. So they did. They wrote me into the show, and I went to Vancouver to film it, and played myself. Yeah, it was crazy. It was great. Sarah McLachlan was in that episode. Ben
Oh,
Lee was in it. Yeah, it was just it was great. It was hilarious.
oh my gosh. Yeah, I really did. I mean, as a guy saying, I love Sarah McLachlan. I remember, her songs coming out and just like they're so good, they're so catchy. She's
Oh
such a
yeah.
great performer.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And a nice person, I can tell you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And doing the Lilith fairs and things like that. It just, she was into activism too. And so you did some activism too. Doing
Yeah.
some climate activism. Obviously
Yeah.
that's in your bones, I'm sure, to do stuff like
Yeah. I
that.
mean, it's part, I was around a lot of that, but yeah, I continue to try to put my time into causes that mean a lot to me. I helped found an organization which was originally called Citizens for Responsible Oil and Gas. Oil and gas, big thing in where I live, Ventura County, and trying to just have like safer oil and gas. It's evolved more into a climate thing as we begin to, as the environment, use double a word with a double meaning, but as the environment in the area became more receptive to really talking about climate, the organization pushed on that a lot more. At first, it was like, we need to have a conversation.
Mm.
So, and then, yeah, and I founded an organization called Every Child Returned in the wake of the family separation policy. And we did some sit-ins in the vein of like, the mothers of the disappeared. We tried to just sit outside the places where these kids were being held. And yeah, I worked as a poll watcher in Arizona for the election, just being there to not supervise, just observe,
Mm.
and found and was delighted to see how well that election ran. It was really very encouraging and patriotic to watch the bipartisan poll workers do such a great job. And that election ran like a top, which is why it was very frustrating to see them be criticized, because I was there and I saw how well it was run. And it was inspiring, actually.
Yeah, they,
So,
they took it really hard here in Georgia too. And mainly this was Republicans running everything. They took it really personally when they were getting the criticism, but it was done very well here, actually.
yeah, that's what I understand. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we got some stuff to work through.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we got midterm elections later this year in 2022. And
Yes.
fingers crossed things go okay and there aren't going to be any issues with that.
Yeah. Well,
We only hope.
yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
You got a lot of great music videos out there. So you kind of seem like you have somewhat of the acting chops in some of these
I hope,
videos.
hope so. I always feel so awkward. Yeah, well, time or money. So I'm an independent artist, and so I have to try to come up with creative ideas for videos that I can shoot on a low budget, and I've had fun doing them. I have the one with the little mechanical bear, and I have one I shot out in the desert with my friend, and yeah, it's been fun. I like doing it. And now that I've made a movie, I understand better about how to use Premiere and how to actually make a video. Uh, in the software for it. So
Yeah, what a great video. California, I love you. And there's a little wind up grizzly bear.
yeah, who's just he's on a quest throughout California. It was fun. I just took like 4 days and with my little bear and drove up to Yosemite and wound him up and filmed him near, El Capitan. And then I wound him up and filmed him in the redwoods and near the Golden Gate Bridge. And yeah, it was fun. People looked at me like I was kind of crazy, but I got some good footage of my little bear.
In the video Earthquake Country, it's you have some people who are the stars in that per se who are lip syncing.
Right. Yeah, I asked my friends that was in the wake of the whole Me Too thing, and so I asked some fellow female musicians if they would lip sync to it. So let me think, who's in it? Sarah Hickman is one of them. Noelle Hampton is in it. Raina Rose is in there. A woman named Carrie who lives in my town is in there. Another friend, Tara. Musicians from various quadrants of the spectrum of of fame or whatever. I just asked them if they would. Oh, Julie Christensen is in it. If they would film themselves, and they all came up with something different, and it was great. Shelby Figueroa. Yeah. No, that was a good one. I was happy everyone jumped in to participate.
Yeah, I like some of your lyrics in there too, and they must like have double meanings, like anchor the foundation, so the walls won't
Thank you. I appreciate the attention to the lyrics.
Oh yeah, like there's a lot more meaning to it. You're in the place where it shakes quite a bit, but it's like it's got to have that meaning, like we have to be strong and anchored.
Yeah. Yep, my metaphor. I'm glad it came through.
Oh yeah. Great stuff. Another great video. Vapor has a lot of good and great cinematographers you have working with you on a lot of these projects.
Vapor was Micah who filmed my documentary, so he's very good. Yeah, that one was one where Thomas Fire was fire that came through my area. My house survived. A bunch of my neighbors lost their houses, but I lost my music studio. And in that was all my, all my scrapbooks, career stuff, anything that I hadn't digitized, tapes. Yeah. So I was both grateful that my house was standing and, mournful for what I lost. It was a big mixture. But for that video, that song is about, none of this is going to last. The only thing that really lasts is our connections to each other. And I asked fellow, people I knew who had lost their houses or lost, studios or whatever, if they would bring an object that survived and just hold it. And so everyone's holding a thing, they got to pick whatever they wanted. One guy brought a bike that was all burnt up. Somebody brought like some kind of cookery that was their grandmother's, everything had this meaning. So another guy brought some tools and we just filmed them standing, a year later as everything's starting to grow back. And it was very poignant. It was a beautiful day when we filmed it. We filmed it at a house that had burned and had never been built back up. So it was still just sort of devastated, but the beautiful poppies were starting to grow. And very poignant experience actually to make that video.
Yeah, very, very well done. And a White Album, when is now the full album coming out? You got your single out, The Money.
Single's out. Yeah, the first single, The Money, is out. The next single is the song with Ben Lee, This Is Water, and that comes out, I think, March 4th, something like that. And then the full album comes out on April 15th. And by then, I hope I will have some kind of maybe a workshop version of the performance ready to go. That's what I'm shooting for. We'll see where we get. But so in terms of CD release stuff, I'm not sure what that looks like yet because no one knows anything about performing right now. But that's what I'm going for. And it'll go out to community radio and independent radio stations for the release date.
Sounds awesome. So we'll look for that new album coming out. And I appreciate you for your time and great speaking with you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Take care and best
All
wishes.
right.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye-bye.
You too. All right. Bye.
Capture the spirit of the holidays like never before with Rockbrook Camera. Nebraska and Western Iowa's premier camera store since 1975. Rockbrook Camera has the latest cameras and lenses, so you can preserve precious memories and learn new photography skills that will last a lifetime. Let the knowledgeable photography pros at Rockbrook Camera show you how to take great pictures of family traditions, the kids' sporting events, and the kids' big holiday musical. Rockbrook Camera is always ready to help with amazing customer support. Join one of their photo classes to learn the best tips and order a beautiful, custom-made gift from their photo lab. Capture the beauty and majesty of winter's snowy landscapes. Be prepared for holiday gatherings and be ready to capture all the family fun. Visit Rockbrook Camera today, 1 block south of 168th and West Center in Omaha, 70th and Pioneers in Lincoln, or online at rockbrookcamera.com. Rockbrook Camera. Great photography begins here.